And here we are down at McGuire Air Force Base, and there's the plane that we eventually boarded and flew to France. I believe it was C-121 was the military designation. As a civilian plane, it would be known as a DC-6. We're taxiing out now to take off. These are some of the other planes that are at the airport. Those were KC-97s, aerial tankers. Here we are, speeding down the runway and taking off. It's a very overcast, cloudy day. Our last look at the United States for 3 years. Looking down on the New Jersey countryside. Now we're going up through the clouds. One consolation is that we'd be seeing the sunshine once we got above them. And here we are up to altitude, looking out on the top of the clouds now, with the sun shining. We're over the ocean now, and through some of the breaks in the clouds you can see the blue water below, but not too many breaks.
Ireland?
Yes, I believe this is Ireland passing over. And now we see the coast of France. No clouds at all over the English Channel, but they start forming the minute you get to the coast of France. Right below the aircraft in a moment, you'll be looking down on the city of Dieppe. There it is. And this is our first glimpse of the city of Paris. As you can see, the flaps are down and we're ready to land. Here we are going over the housetops. First thing that struck us was the extreme number of red roofs. Most of the roofs were made out of a tile-like substance that was red in color. Here we are touching down at Orly Airport in Paris. This is a view out the window of a trailer, a temporary location on Ebru before we went down to Drew Air Base. This is a shot of the old submarine pens, German submarine pens at La Police, where I had to go down and pick up my car that was shipped by boat. There's a bunker. It was a heavily fortified location where, after Hitler took over France, he stationed his submarines at that particular base. This is a little town of Blovy, which was in between Drew Air Base and the city of Drew, where we lived, and this is a chateau that's in this little town. Notice the long approach to the chateau itself from the road. And a scene from inside the village itself. I hope all the traffic doesn't obscure your view too much. This is the church in Drew City itself. There'll be a sign here in a minute. I can't here. Chapelle Royale, which is a royal chapel And here's Debbie outside one of the gate entrances. Beautiful church, a very old church. You can notice by these steps that are outside, you can see how they are worn with time. And from one location around the church itself, we're looking out over the city of Dreux, France. This was taken on my first TDY trip to Germany. This is just a view of the countryside driving through France towards the German border. And we stopped for gas at this particular location, and I just let the camera run a couple of minutes to show the traffic. Here we are near the city of Reims, and the giant Dunlop tire there indicates that this road is used yearly for a road race conducted in that area. We're now in Germany, and you can see the difference in highways. This is one of the many autobahns that are in the country of Germany. This is through one of the villages we had to pass on our way to Ramstein Air Base. This is in the Saar Basin. Electric locomotive there. And on our return to France, we're coming up to the French-German border here, and we're passed on through without any problem. You see the number of trucks lined up waiting to go through into Germany from France. And this is a cemetery, which near the city of Verdun. You saw the sign there. Here, once again, we're coming into the city of Reims, France, on our way back to Évreux. Beautiful city, almost totally rebuilt from World War II. This is the Chateau Adonet, which was about, 15, 20 miles, I guess, from where we lived in Dreux. We visited this place quite often. It was a very fascinating place. It was used to be a hunting lodge and was dedicated to the goddess of the hunt, Diane. I'm not quite sure, as I recall, who built it. Do you remember him? One of the kings of France, I don't know, one of the Louis, I think, built this for his hunting lodge. This is out and back in the gardens. I think I used to know what those things were that were growing at an angle there, but here's a plaque above the front entrance depicting Diane herself, goddess of the hunt. And you can get a perspective of the size of that thing by the kids down by the door, and the size of the gigantic doors also. And this is merely an entrance through the wall into the grounds. Above you see the dogs and the deer. There is the old sundial clock on the side of what looks to be a chimney there. And the plaque outside telling what the place is. This is a view of the moat, which of course no longer has water in it, but at one time it did. And the little bridge going over to the giant doors which allow you into the grounds. This is not the entrance to the building itself, to the chateau. There's a little souvenir shop across the street from the chateau, which I guess every tourist attraction in France has its souvenir shops. And this is a statue out in the street there in front of the chateau, which is in memory of those who died in World War I. little sidewalk cafe across from the chateau. My wife Gloria, Debbie, and Mike walking along the sidewalk in front of the chateau. This was the chapel that was built on the grounds. Also another view of the sidewalk cafe. You notice my Packard in the foreground there in front of the chateau. Get a look here at the chateau itself. And this is the same location, however, at a different time. We went to visit the chateau with the Huddlestons. Dave and Virginia are with us. And on this particular day, we were going to be able to get inside. It would be open to tourists on this day, so we were going to take advantage of that. Dave and Virginia there, and Gloria and Debbie, along with Mike and Steve. This is a meat market across the street from the chateau, which deals strictly with horse meat. It's one of the intricate fencing that is constructed around the chateau to keep people from climbing in. We're patiently waiting for the place to open. We're sitting on a bench out in front. There's Dave. Here we are enjoying a cold drink at the sidewalk cafe across the street. Debbie's in the foreground. This is a small river that runs by the chateau, and obviously where the water for the moat was obtained when it contained water. And a shot of the entrance from a distance. Dave obviously thought this was a good location for a picture also. Here we are inside the, I guess you'd call it the vestibule, inside the entrance, the very large staircase going up to the second floor, the deer heads on the wall. Now we're outside in the gardens. We were really surprised once we got in at how well kept the grounds were inside, and the enormous amount of flowers. This is the chapel for the chateau, separate building where they worship. This is the inside of the front entrance. A shot of some of the flowers. And Debbie herself. The same cheese. And we get Virginia Huddleston and Gloria together out here in the garden. And this was a shrine, was it? This had a special name, and I can't recall now. The kids were looking down into what appeared to be a dungeon. There were some barred windows, open windows in that wall, which they were looking in. And I'm not really sure if dungeon is the right word. Go ahead, Gloria, take a drink. Go ahead. Here's Debbie across the street in the souvenir shop looking at the dolls in the window that she was absolutely fascinated with. And this is on the road back to our residence in Drew. someone decided to build a house right in the middle of the road, so of course the road had to go around it. It appears that there's a monument in the middle of this road, but as you see when we get closer, it is built at a bend in the road, and actually the road bends off to the left. On one of our vacations over there, we went to Luxembourg, and here we are leaving France and stopping at the Luxembourg border to be checked through. And our first stop was the American Military Cemetery outside the city of Luxembourg. A gigantic place which was constructed by the United States to honor those that were killed in World War II and buried in this location. Beautiful place. We had no idea this was here. This is a map showing the invasion of Europe. Course of action that was taken following the invasion by the different units. First the recapture of France and then the invasion into Germany. And here we have a look at the graves themselves. The crosses that are all precisely lined up and are in a straight row no matter which way you're looking at them. Debbie at the fountain. As I remember correctly, this was in spring of the year that we went here, probably in May. Exactly which year, I'm not really sure. I suspect it was probably 62. This is General Patton's grave, who was killed in Luxembourg after the war and then buried there in that cemetery. This is a German cemetery, which is just down the road where German soldiers were buried. You don't see the individual crosses here as you did in the American cemetery. The graves are marked by plaques in the ground itself, and every so often they have a series of crosses along with the main one at the top of the facility. Here is a look into the old city of Luxembourg. Most of the city was built down in the ravine, and the newer parts of the city, of course, were expanded up onto the outer rim of this ravine. Here's one of the numerous bridges that cross over. And we're looking down into it. Here's a little closer look at one of the bridges. They take pride in their landscape all over Europe, and of course this place is no exception. This whole gully was carved out by water a long time ago, and of course the water is no longer there, with the exception of nothing more than a trickle which runs through the bottom that you'll get a view of here in a minute. But most of it has been turned into a park. Another bridge. Here is a walkway down lower section. Series of paths and steps. Someone is pointing that out to us. There is what remains of the water that once formed this crevice, and that has been reinforced with cement so that it won't do any more erosion. This is up on the upper level. This is a church. Still, of course, in the city of Luxembourg. This is out at the Luxembourg airport. That particular plane taking off there was a Belgian plane. It's an American-made twin-engine transport. And this is the town of Esch, which I particularly wanted to visit because after World War I was over, my dad stayed in France. My dad stayed in France with the Army of Occupation and was billeted and housed here in the town of Esch in Luxembourg. And that building that you just saw us standing in front of was an industrial school where he lived while he was there. And this is the church across the street from the school. We found a playground not too far away, and we took time out to let the kids have a little fun. A picture my dad had given me a picture of the industrial school that we saw a moment ago, and it was taken in 1990, and it looks no different today than it did then, or at the time these movies were taken. Here are some examples of some of the houses in the countryside throughout Luxembourg. Most all of them have the thatched roof. The city of Esch is primarily an industrial center, and as you can see by this picture right here, the smokestacks and the factories and so forth. Here is an old German bunker that was constructed during World War II as part of the Maginot Line. Oh, I'm sorry, the Siegfried Line. Maginot Maginot Line was French. Here we are entering the city of Verdun. That we took on vacation. And we're driving out in the countryside outside of Verdun itself. There are some shots of cemeteries. The darker crosses here are from World War I. The whiter, newer crosses that you see in the background are graves from World War II. This is on the outskirts of the city of Verdun. Most of these, yeah, these are French cemeteries, and most of the monuments and so forth here are a tribute to World War I. Here's an old World War I cannon that the kids are looking over. There's another one. And of course you see the French flag flying.
And we weren't allowed to go into those cemeteries, were we?
The private cemeteries usually had walls around them, and you weren't allowed to take pictures of them. That brief shot that we had at the beginning of this particular segment was a shot I took inside the cemetery, but I was told in no uncertain terms by the caretaker that I wasn't supposed to do that. We're seeing other scenes from the city of Verdun here. Here is a view of what is known as the Engineer Towers. It's part of an old fortification that dates way back beyond World War I that the U.S. Corps of Engineers adopted as their insignia, the two towers. I think we'll see a better... Yes, here we go. This is the picture of them from across the river, and that is the insignia that the U.S. Corps of Engineers adopted. Here are some World War I monuments. You see the dates on this, 1914 to 1918. And carvings, sculptures depicting the Allied forces, one soldier from each country participating in the war. Then we went to St. Mihiel, which was another place my dad spent quite a bit of time in World War I at, and here's a picture of some of the ruins outside of the village of St. Mihiel, which are primarily from World War I. The ruins are still standing. Nothing was ever done to level them or get them out of the way. They were just left there. Here are some more. And the battle raged throughout this countryside here. Here's a church inside the city of St. Mihiel. One of the streets. And another World War I monument. This is looking over the countryside in the St. Mihiel area. There are a lot of trenches in this area that are, nature has almost completely filled in, but they're still evident. You can still see where these trenches were, where the warfare took place. And not too far from St. Mihiel is this American monument that you see setting up on top of the hill there. And it took us a while to figure out how to get to it, but we finally found our way up and got out of the car and walked up to look it over.